point in the tile project where I can start grouting. And honestly, this is my least favorite part. Grouting is not hard, it's just time consuming and it can be a little bit back breaking because you have to make sure that you get your tiles all the way clean or else you'll have haze on them and you don't want that. So what the grout that I'm going to be using is not a pre-mix. That's kind of another thing too. This is going to be one that I'm going to have to mix, and you have to make sure that when you're mixing your grout, you keep it consistent with the proportion of the powder and the water, because if you don't, there can be some inconsistency with the color of your grout. Now they do make pre-mixed grout, just like I had pre-mixed mortar, but the other night when I ran into Lowe's to get this, it was like 5 minutes until they closed, and I'm sure everybody was hating me, and so I wasn't going to waste their time anymore with fooling with trying to find that and ask questions, because I've never used that before, and this is something that I am familiar with, so I just grabbed it and went. But because of that, I don't know exactly how quick this process is going to go, because this is a large tile project. I don't know if it's going to take me several days, 2 days, 1 day, I don't know. So my plan tonight is to mix this entire bag and go as far as I can. It's 8 o'clock now at night, so it might be a long night, hopefully not, but I'm gonna mix this bag up and I'm going to work and get as far as I can with this bag. I did buy 2 bags just in case. I don't think it'll take more than that, because I did a 1/16 inch grout lines, and that's not very big, so really it shouldn't use that much grout. But anyways, this is, I chose to do, it's a white grout. It's called Avalanche. Yes, Avalanche, and I think it'll be pretty. The reason I chose white, the thing about grout is you can do whatever color you want. It's totally your preference, but I wanted to do white because I want the back to all kind of blend in, and I really want my range and my pot filler to be the focal point. So even though right now, like, it looks pretty with like some darker line, it's not bad. It wouldn't be a bad choice if I chose a darker grout. The look I'm going for is just more of a muted background, so that's why I'm doing white. But anyways, the brand is Mape, M-A-P-E-I. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's unsanded grout, and you want to use unsanded grout on like porcelain and ceramic tiles that go up a vertical surface like this. And the reason is because it doesn't scratch the tile and it's easier to work with smaller grout lines, I think. I'm not a professional, I'm just doing what they said, and so we're about to get started. I'm gonna show you how I mix it now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you had the chance to see the first part to my tile video and you got to watch it as we laid all the tile in the kitchen for the backsplash. And today I am doing the grouting. So at the end of this video will be the final reveal, which I hope you will stick around and watch, because my kitchen turned out so good and I'm so excited to share with y'all. But in this video, for the second step of the tile process, we are grouting. And what I'm doing here is I'm mixing all of the grout together per the instructions on the package, exactly how it says, because this is a pre-mixed grout, and if you don't mix it how it says, it can have a variation in the color and the texture, and you don't want that. So if you do a pre-mixed grout, make sure you read it and definitely follow those instructions. But all in all, it's not hard to mix. I use a drill with a paddle attachment, and that helps a lot. And once I get all of this mixed up, I will show you how I apply the grout.
Grout is ready, and I'm going to start putting it on the tile now. This is called a float, and what you do is you just take a handful of the grout, smear it on here, and just kind of smear it into the grout lines of the tile. Per the instructions on the container for the grout, it says to put it on and let it sit for like 15 to 30 minutes and then start wiping it off. That is because you want the grout to start kind of drying into the cracks, the grout lines. So my plan is to do this whole section first. Let that sit for 15 minutes or so. While that's sitting, I'm gonna move over to the opposite wall over here and start doing some of that. Then while that's sitting, I'll come over here and start wiping. So that's my game plan, and I'm about to get to it. I'm also gonna wear gloves because this is messy and your hands get really dry when you start wiping it off. What you can't see is in the floor, I have a second 5-gallon bucket that has water and a sponge. These are the sponges, right here. And as your water gets dirty, you'll have to empty it and fill it up with new water. So, here we go.
So, confession time, whenever I do a tile project, which actually this is only my second time doing a tile project, but this is my second time doing a tile project by myself. Let me correct that. I've done tile with my mother before, but anytime that I've done any tile work, when it comes to the grouting, this is my least favorite part. Honestly, it's not hard. It's just, I guess you would call it back breaking or shoulder breaking. I mean, literally by the time that I was finished with this, my arms and shoulders were so sore, especially trying to reach up to the back of my backsplash in the kitchen. That was difficult, and I'm short if you haven't noticed, so I stood on a stool a lot to help me with that. But all in all, don't be intimidated by the grout process because it's really very simple. I found that the hardest part of grouting is trying to decide your color, because if you go into Lowe's or Home Depot, they generally have samples that you can look at, but you never know if it's really going to turn out to be that color. So a lot of times I will hop on Pinterest, or if I know somebody who has a tile backsplash that they happen to know what grout color they chose, I'll ask them and look. Again, I knew I wanted a white grout, but of course there are tons of different colors of whites and different shades and variations, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't get a yellow white or a white that was too bright and brighter than my cabinet. So I still found it to be a little hard when deciding the color, but Pinterest definitely pulled through, and I ultimately chose the white grout that was called Avalanche. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you will see pictures, and I love it. It turned out exactly how I wanted. So if you are looking for the perfect white, Avalanche is the shade to go. And then here we are wiping it off. Again, this is the part where you want to have a bucket of water. You're just going to wipe it as clean as you can, and then you're going to constantly rinse out your sponge. As your bucket of water gets dirty, you will need to empty it and get fresh water, and be prepared to do that quite often. But if you don't, you're just going to be smearing your tiles with dirty water, which defeats the purpose, because what you're doing here is wiping the grout off of the tile surface. And one thing that I have learned in doing this, the more you wipe with the wet sponge, if the grout has not dried in the grout lines, then you're just going to smear it even more. So the purpose of letting it sit per the instructions of the 15 minutes or 30 minutes is important, because it allows the grout to set up within the grout lines. That way you're not just wiping away what you've applied. So the wait period is definitely important, and I would definitely follow those instructions. But again, be prepared to have many variations of buckets of water and going back and forth. So if you have a place nearby where you can empty your water and then refill the bucket, that's going to be very handy. So I wanted to show you the actual speed of me applying the grout so that you get a general idea. I know it's hard to judge how long a project can take when you're watching a time lapse, but here is the actual speed. And again, as I'm smearing the grout into the grout line, I'm trying to wipe away as much excess as I can off of the tile surface, just to make it easier when I do go back in to clean the tile. because then I'm not having to wipe away as much, and hopefully that gets the tile cleaner faster and ultimately will help me not have to refill and empty my water as fast and as often. So like I said, I could have honestly done this grout project in one day, but I started late the first day I did it, so I ended up working for a few hours and then stopping and finishing the next day. And I just tried to, as I was working, I tried to get to a good stopping point. One thing about pre-mixed grout is that you want to make sure you mix it exactly the same both times, because there can always be a variation in the color, and the last thing you want is half of your tile project to be one color with grout and the other half to be slightly different. I followed my instructions exactly both times, and I will say you cannot tell at all where I stopped and where I restarted the next day. So as long as you follow the instructions when you're mixing the grout, you should be fine. But again, I just work in sections because I found that it's easier for me to keep up with, and it helps me stay on track with how much I'm trying to get done. This was the second day, and I would say I probably had like half of the tile project. I think I did half the first day, probably half the second day, and it may have took me a couple hours this day, but honestly it didn't take me near as long as I thought it would. What took the longest really was the prep work of taping it off and mixing the grout. But all in all, the application process is not that long, and of course the wiping off and cleaning, that definitely takes longer than just the applying process. Alright, we are in the home stretch, y'all. We are almost done with this tile project, and I hope that you'll stick around for the end of the video for the big reveal, because you are gonna love it. My kitchen turned out so good. It looks so great. It was a major upgrade with not a lot of cost, and definitely since I did this myself, we saved money by doing that, but I'm so proud. This was a very big tile project, and I was a little intimidated at first, but I had faith in myself, I got it done, and I'm very proud now that it's finished, and I can't wait to show it off to y'all. I hope that you have enjoyed the two-part video of this tile project, and I love DIY and I love doing this, so I can't wait to show you more projects in my home. After grouting, you want to caulk, and they make that in the same color as your grout choice. This is just a picture of blue painter's tape that I use to have clean lines when caulking. I didn't film because there was nothing special about that. Okay, I'm finally at the end of the tile backsplash project, and I think it took me at least 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. 1 week to fully tile. Keep in mind I was doing just a little bit each day after work. I did a few hours, but then when I finished that, I did the grouting. The grouting actually only took me 2 days, and truthfully I could have completed all of that in 1 day, but the first day I started late at night. I think it was like 8 o'clock at night, so that ended up being a 2-day process. But all in all, it's done. The only thing I haven't done yet, which I'm gonna do, I'm just probably not gonna film it, is seal it. And I might come back later and tell y'all, what I chose to use to seal it. I haven't decided exactly how I wanna seal it yet or what product I wanna use. So if you have done a tile backsplash and you have a recommendation on a good sealer, please leave it in the comments and let me know. But without further ado, let me show you my tile backsplash.
Well, that wraps it up for this two-part tile video. If y'all are needing any further instruction, if you decide to do this project on your own and you have questions, you can always message me on Instagram, where my handle is @thehouse4hosting, and I will be more than willing to help you in any way that I can. Again, if you have liked this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. I will keep posting these types of videos, as well as my cleaning motivation videos and recipes, with more to come. I'm enjoying it, and thank y'all so much for being here. Until next time, bye guys.